Здорово, Зол, здорово. Сейчас будет 3 часа кайфика, но надеюсь. О, мы уже ходим. Я не играл в нее. Мы куда-то плывем на пароме с цветами. Вот вам цветочки на вот с 8 марта вас. Ну.
A lot of this isn't going to make sense to you, and I'm sorry about that. I'm just going to start at the beginning with the house.
Читай давай. А как читать? Он мне не дает читать. Что я тебе буду читать? Он мне не дал прочитать, он сразу как бы перелистнул и все. Но я понял, что он говорит, что я хочу вам начать эту историю с самого начала. А смысл читать, как бы оно на английском идет, будет просто накладываться одно на другое. Вот как вот управление? Почему не показывают управление зала?
Inside the mailbox were bills from 7 years ago, marked urgent, open immediately.
Она нашла счета с пометкой срочно.
I hadn't been back since my brother Lewis's funeral.
Ну пойдем поищем, посмотрим, что за игра такая великая.
In her will, my mother left me a key but didn't tell me what it unlocked. Maybe she thought I'd know. Or she thought that the mystery would be enough to bring me back.
Пока похоже на симулятор ходьбы. Да, тут у меня... А что тут две дороги? Дорога направо, дорога налево. Улица потихоньку белеет. А, тут типа тупик. Смысл был спуска вниз какой. А тут нету быстрой, кстати, озвал ходьбы. А, тут вообще походу нет. А Зош сказал, что игра типа кайф. Ну, окей, хорошо. Пока у меня есть к игре вопросы. Не показано управление. Быстрой ходьбы я тоже не понимаю, как быстро передвигаться. Есть ли она тут или нету. Непонятно на самом деле, куда налево, куда надо было идти. Никуда. Ну, скорее всего, нам надо было сюда, там, скорее всего, не дали так.
The truth is, even after I inherited the house, I never thought I'd come back to it.
Правда в том, что даже получив дом наследства, я не думал возвращаться. Но ответы знал только дом. Дом, который построил Том.
The woods around the house have always been uncomfortably silent.
Пойдите к дому, обеим. Ладно. А, тут две тропы, ведущие в одно и то же место. Блин, был бы просто русский язык, был бы на самом деле с кайфом, потому что он слишком быстро появляется и исчезает.
The house was exactly like I remembered it, the way I'd been dreaming about it.
В общем, будем решать загадки, как я понимаю. Дом будет нам давать ответы на какие-то вопросы.
As a child, the house made me uncomfortable in a way I couldn't put into words. Now, as a 17-year-old, I knew exactly what those words were. I was afraid of the house.
Девочку дом пугал до 17 лет. Ну, бывает. Ключ.
I hoped the key might unlock the front door. It didn't. Looking in, I felt like the house itself had been waiting for me.
Да, к управлению, конечно, большие вопросы. Управление в игре так себе. Гараж. Гараж, кстати, открывается, нет? Ищем бэкдор. Шум ветра.
Crawling through the doggy door used to be a lot easier when I was 11.
А почему не попробовать ключ на задней двери вообще нет? Типа, ладно.
The power had been turned off the night we left.
Электричество отключили, когда мы уехали. Не, ну музычка нормальная такая, уже успокаивающая.
For the first time in years, I felt like I was home.
А есть
But instead of
флотинки
a family,
что-нибудь?
there were just memories of one.
Блин, слишком быстро читают, я не
Like how
успеваю.
only one restaurant would deliver to our house, so we had Chinese a lot.
А, только китайскую кухню доставляла, понятно. Доставка китайской кухни, ого,
Or
консервов.
how after Lewis started working at the cannery, we all got sick of eating salmon. Except our cat, Molly.
Да, кошки в кайф, конечно, там лосося не имею,
The table was still a wreck from the night we left.
А чё они все бросили-то? Как бы.
It was like a bomb had gone off, killing everyone but sparing the furniture.
А чё они все бросили?
My mom was the only one of us who could imagine Great-Grandma Edie living in a nursing home.
Может было прибраться перед отъездом, наверное.
Nothing in the house looked abnormal. There was just too much of it, like a smile with too many teeth. Even the fireplace had a story. Edie told me the bricks came from the original house, after it sank.
В камин пошли кирпичи затонувшего дома. А какой-то симулятор ходьбы.
Mom always told me to stay out of the basement, so I wasn't too surprised when the key didn't fit. Great-Grandpa Sven built a music box for Barbara, along with the rest of the house.
Почему в игре не показывают управление, типа, ну...
A lot of things got left behind in the whirlwind of that last night. My mom wasn't much of an optimist, but she never stopped believing that my brother Milton was alive.
Какая-то закрытая, запиленная дверь, прям по самой не хочу. Пойдем наверх, поднимемся.
After Milton disappeared, Mom sealed up all the bedrooms. Then Edie retaliated and drilled peepholes.
Странный дом. Везде все за это заколочено, запенено,
I
дверные
spent a lot
глазки.
of time playing in Great Uncle Walter's room. I think my mom sometimes regretted not sealing it up. Lewis told me there were secret passages, but I never believed him.
Ага. Ключик-то оказался
Turns out,
от
my mom was
книжки.
really good at keeping secrets.
Блин, ну как это
Now it was time to
неудобно.
find out what my mom had been afraid of.
Почему нельзя было управление нормально продумать?
From the paintings on the wall, it was clear my brother Milton had been here before me. Reading this, maybe it sounds like I had a plan. But I had no idea what was behind that door.
Оп. Из одной комнаты в другую комнату.
Just like I had no idea where all this was gonna lead. I grew up looking at Molly's room through the peephole. Molly's gerbil had a tiny bedroom with its own even tinier
А,
gerbil
это
cage.
жилище хомяка? Жестко.
Being inside for the first time, I felt like I'd stepped behind a painting.
Ну, пока какая-то странная игра, на самом деле.
December 13th, 1947. Dear Diary, I'll be gone soon, but I wanted to tell somebody about
Нормальный
what's gonna happen.
дневничок.
It started when Mom sent me to bed without dinner. I woke up and I was starving, so I looked around for something to eat.
Решил съесть хомяка, да, типа? Поем
The
хомячка.
gerbil food was dry, but I didn't mind it.
Жесть. Взяла морковку хомяка, чисто сожрала.
I thought about eating Christopher, but I held back.
Да рыбку-то за что? Когда у ребенка аппетит. Я, говорит, хотел рыбку сожрать.
I kept eating and eating.
Зубную пасту ела, серьезно? Ё-моё.
I ate a lot of things that night.
Это странный вкус у девочки. Она решила просто все сожрать, да? Все, что видела на своем пути.
Then I heard chirping outside my window. It was a barn swallow going back to her nest. I reached out for her. And suddenly, I was a cat.
Ёп.
I tried to be quiet, but the bird was really scared.
Как я вам в роли кошки?
Mom and Dad didn't even look at me.
Так, а дальше куда? Я тебя все равно сожру.
I jumped and I almost got her. I could tell she was getting really tired. Now I was up in the big tree. I promised Dad I wouldn't climb it anymore. All I cared about was eating that mama bird. I gobbled her up,
Ерда.
and suddenly I was an owl.
Чего?
First, all I heard was the wind. Then I heard little teeth nibbling in the grass.
Нормальное такое воображение. А куда надо лететь?
Rabbits.
Ролик-то зашел.
I imagined his face looking up and seeing mine through my talons. I swallowed him up, and I didn't chew one bit.
Это что за гуманная игра, ёпта? Взяли кролика, сожрали. Бедный кролик.
A mama rabbit.
Азот,
She
ты
was
что мне
almost too big to
посоветовал?
carry. I started choking, but I couldn't stop eating. And suddenly, I was a shark.
Чего, ёпта, я стал акулой? Какая нахрен акула, вы о чем? Жесть какая-то. Вот так вот. То была кошка, теперь была совой, а теперь акулы вдруг стали. Я вообще не понимаю. О, покатились дальше. Жесть какая-то вообще.
I rolled off a cliff and into the ocean. Now, I was hungrier than ever. I wanted fat, juicy soups.
Эту игру посоветовала Зела. Нормально.
Tasted really good.
Ты говорит, поиграй, игра офигенная, говорит. Что-то каким-то скамом попахивает уже. Так, а куда делся-то? А, вон он.
I grabbed on tight. When I was so hungry, I jumped out of the water. When I opened my eyes, everything had changed.
Жесть какая-то. Детская фантазия, походу. Когда открыл глаза, все изменилось. А что изменилось-то? Ё-моё, я опять кем-то стал. Что за щупальца?
Now I was a monster, and I smelled people everywhere.
Я же даже не вижу. А, вот, вижу. Я не понимаю, оно мне... А, вот. Очень странно центрует.
I was big, but I moved real quiet.
Мужик, беги, сейчас тебя сожрет.
I wanted to stop, but also I didn't.
Жесть какая-то. Симулятор червя.
After the last passenger, I was still hungry. And to cross the water,
63 вроде как.
something I had to have, so I swam towards it.
Вроде как. Ну, а зал говорит часа 3. Ну, чувствую, мы все часов 5 будем играть.
I slithered onto the sand,
Если я начну
and the good
тупить.
smell went into an old pipe.
Странная игра пока. Я вообще как-то... Ну, началось сегодня нормально, а что-то жесть. Сколько? Да что-то делать? Я не знаю, что здесь делать. Я первый раз не играю. Вообще, типа,
I
должна быть
got
детская
closer and
игра.
closer.
Так, а что ты наверх-то не лезешь? Ну, пипец детская. Да не говори, Фредди отдыхает вообще. Еще бы понять надо, куда тебе тут...
All my stomach started growling. And suddenly, I was me again. my breath for a long time, but I couldn't hear anything. I think it's waiting for me to fall asleep. But it's not going to wait much longer. It needs to be, and we both know I will be delicious.
Жесть какая-то. Забавная кофта.
I'm not sure if I believed all of that, but I'm sure Edie would have.
Это мы по всем персонажам должны будем пройтись, видимо.
This will be obvious later, but my mom never told me any of these stories. Edie would have, but Mom didn't like bringing up the past. Though, when we adopted a stray kitten, she was the one who named it Molly. I spent a lot of time in Great-Grandma Edie's room.
На каком-то прабабушке.
Louis died a week before we left, but Edie had already started to memorialize him.
Портрет.
Her room was like a museum.
О,
For 500 years, the Finches have been famous throughout Norway for their fortune and misfortune.
так, и что надо делать?
Odin Finch buries the latest victims of the family curse, his wife Ingeborg and their newborn son, Johan. On January 7th, 1937, he set sail with his family and his house, hoping to leave the curse behind.
Они дом перевозили на платформе по реке?
But 40-foot waves off the coast of Washington send the house and Odin to the bottom of the sea. Odin's daughter Edie, with husband Sven and baby Molly, step ashore on their new home, Orcas Island.
На гениях надо было, типа, дом так перевозить.
Odin Finch is the first to be buried in the new family cemetery. His daughter Edie is already dreaming of a new Finch house.
Так, ну это все, это уже по новой пошло. О, ёпты, управление есть. Управление камерой. Обычные перекрестия. Выключить чувствительность мыши. Подожди, а как с этой фигни выйти? А, вот. Назад. Понял.
Whatever's wrong with this family, it goes back a long ways.
Ладно, пойдем дальше. Типа, ну дом будет... Ага, нормальная дверь такой. Даже не понимаю, что это за птичка какая-то.
When Edie told people Sven was killed by a dragon, she could also have said he was building a dragon-shaped slide that collapsed. She could have, but she didn't. Even in her 90s, sometimes Edie seemed a lot younger than my mother.
Прабабушке было за 90. Жесть, ванная.
The only trace Grandpa Sam's first wife Kay left on the house was the pink bathroom. It was a pretty big trace.
Жесткая ванна. Фул белая какая-то. Ой, не белая, розовая. Универсальный ключ от всех дверей, что ли, у тебя? Секреты ванной.
There's a secret in this bathroom. It's in the last place you would look. It isn't in the cupboard. It's hidden in this book.
Забавно. Капец, потаенных дверей здесь вообще тьма, походу, да? Это чья-то фотостудия, как я понимаю, да? Ну, судя здесь вроде как проявители,
Sven
фотопленка.
gave Sam an old camera he'd refurbished. He never put it down.
Угу. Жесть. Просто будем ходить из комнаты в комнату, и, видимо, какие-то истории нам будут рассказывать. И все это часа на 3. Я не знаю, будут ли тут какие-то логические задачи. Ну, посмотрим. Я думаю, должны
I
быть.
knew Grandpa Sam had a twin. And that he never talked about him.
Пойдем. Нас приглашают в эту комнату.
I guess my grandpa didn't like history
Командный
any more than my
центр.
mom did.
How I Want to Remember My Brother by Sam Finch. The thing I remember is that when he made up his mind, that was it. My brother said he'd die before he ate another mushroom. And he did.
Блин, люблю
At
на
Barbara's
качелях
funeral,
качаться.
he swore he'd never be afraid again. And he wasn't. I think Calvin always wanted to fly.
Calvin! Dinner's ready! Coming!
But that day, he finally made up his mind to do it. I told him going around was impossible. Maybe if I hadn't said that,
Солнышко на качелях хотел сделать. Ё-моё.
Calvin, I'm not gonna tell you again!
maybe if the wind hadn't picked up, then maybe he'd still be here. But I doubt it.
Вот я понимаю
I
качельки.
think he'd already made up his mind. That's what I want to remember about my brother. That's the day he made up his mind to fly. And he did.
Ну, все возможно, все возможно.
Calvin's story felt strangely familiar. When I was younger, I remember trying to do the exact same thing.
Игра просто одно большое повествование.
After the funeral, Edie roped off Calvin's half of the room. Mom said Grandpa Sam enlisted at 18 and never set foot in the room again.
Смешная фигня. Оп. А тут ручка. Ну давай. Ну. А, вверх надо было. Не, ну нормальный дом, что я могу сказать?
The passages were a pretty tight fit. They'd obviously been built for smaller hands and bellies.
А у меня еще варианты были, куда выходить.
Growing up, I always thought of Barbara as a child star.
Подожди. А я же мог там выйти. Ну-ка, залезь обратно. А, это куда вело тогда? А, или здесь закрыто?
Edie's father Odin built the original house.
Как тебе, Вась? Ну, знаешь, очень гуманная игра была, когда мы жрали всех
Whenever
вообще.
people ask me about my family, the first thing they always want to know about is Barbara. Mom must have locked the third floor stairs on the night we left.
Очень, ну так я говорю, это весьма гуманная игра. Fortnite видел трейлер? Да видел. Первым делом мне Данила его уже скинул. Так, видимо, обратно надо ползти. Да. Видимо, нам из этой комнаты потом выходить надо. Да у меня у самого интернет тоже хандрит, так что вы не одни такие несчастные, может, не переживайте вот так. У всех такая же фигня.
I never thought about how hard it must have been for her afterwards.
А, девочка была популярной, типа. Жестко. История
Of all the
Барбары.
stories people wrote about Barbara's death, I'm surprised Edie saved this one.
О, кошмар.
Old Jack here with another ghastly tale inspired by America's most unfortunate
Страшилки.
family. I'm calling it The Surprise Ending of Barbara
Вась, БП
Finch.
берешь? Не беру.
As a child star, Barbara was famous for her scream. Now at 16, she was all washed up.
Она вышла в тираж уже к 16 годам, потеряла
But in
популярность.
a lucky break, she'd been asked to perform her signature scream at a local convention for monster movie fans. It was just the boost her career needed. Unfortunately, her scream hadn't aged well.
А вы что хотели? Голос-то сломался.
Getting better. I think you just need the right motivation.
Her biggest fan and current boyfriend, Rick, was about to demonstrate when...
Now that was a great scream.
It was Barbara's father who
Жесть.
sang. He'd slipped into a table saw and had to be rushed to the emergency room. So Barbara got stuck babysitting her youngest brother, Walter.
Ну слушай, какая-то странная игра на самом деле.
Comeback was cancelled.
Просто пока
Okay,
не
I'm
по вот
hearing
этому.
frustration, but I'm not hearing terror. What if I tried...
A gang of hoodlums in Halloween masks have been terrorizing Orcas Island tonight. Police are urging residents to...
That came from the basement.
You're right! Also, I loved your delivery on that. Why is your basement door locked?
Because my dad likes making puzzles and secret passages. There's a key hidden in the music box. The secret is to keep winding and winding until finally the key pops out.
Thanks, babe. I'll be back in a sec.
Мужик пошел, его сажало.
Rick hadn't returned. So Barbara went to look for him.
А, и мы пошли искать, да?
She reached for the music box.
И... Как это
And
неудобно.
as she wound the key, she listened for Rick, but the house was silent. She found Rick's crutch and imagined the worst.
Кому с костыря, ёпта. Комикс. На здоровье, ёпта.
The gang's leader is the infamous Hookman killer, Dr. Carl Hamill, who impaled and then ate his family 10 years ago tonight.
Давай.
The old fridge rattled and grew still.
Rick?
Barb, relax. I was just trying to scare you to help you find your scream.
Well, I'm not scared, Rick. I'm
Ты чё,
furious.
Вася?
Then act furious. All I'm getting from you now is that you're hurt and confused and...
She threw him out, but she kept a little something to remember him by.
Barb, have you seen my other crutch?
And she was still holding it when she fell asleep watching the late picture show. Hours later...
Barbara! Walter, what's going on up there? Ah! Okay, I'm coming up.
Ща еще кому-то будем фигарить. Поехали. А можно по лестнице? А, нет. А ты бегать вообще умеешь что-то, не? Почему мы пешком ходим? Почему здесь бегание?
Police describe the man as 6 feet tall, with a steel hook for a hand. Residents are urged to lock all doors and windows and notify the police of any suspicious activity.
Barbara turned, saw the hook man, and...
Ну что за капитан Крюк?
Speechless. He was quite smashing.
На тебя.
He couldn't get enough of Barbara.
Okay, Barbara, there's gotta be another way out of here.
That night, she played her part beautifully.
Ща мы тебе фиганем. А это кто-нибудь из родственников, да, кажется? Мы просто своего же фиганули. Решил приколоться. О, красавец. О. А ты куда делся, мужик? Поворонил? Какой поворонил? Он просто исчез.
Oh dear.
Сюрприз, который Кондрате чуть не хватил.
Then she saw what kind of monsters they were, and she realized what was about to happen. She was going to be famous. And with her final breath, Barbara Finch gave the performance of her life. I wasn't there myself.
Да.
I hear Barbara was magnificent.
Это картонная рисовка напоминает Венди. Помню? Венди или Венди, как там мы играли, чернильную.
But unfortunately, so did her fans. Of course, the police blamed it all on poor Rick, who disappeared the same night. And little Walter? Hiding under his bed the whole time. He took it all pretty hard, but that's another story. As for Barbara, tucked inside the music box is all they ever found of her. Her ear. Now that's what I call a real eerie tale.
Веселая история. Экран покажет наш.
Edie told me all Barbara wanted was to be remembered, as absurd as that comic was. Maybe what Edie saw was a happy ending.
Да. Ну, пойдем дальше.
I guess now I know why Mom didn't like me playing with the music box.
Так, ну нам сюда надо. Здесь закрыто. Еще так темно тут, капец.
My Grandpa Sam spent 7 years sharing a room with his dead brother, Calvin. It's funny. All those times I played the music box and never found the basement key. Sealed rooms you weren't allowed inside of.
Ой, сиди к врачу, колесики попей. Золы. Не, мне это не надо. Вот Азель может быть. Да, Зол у нас вечно под пивом.
Molly always seemed like a girl I could imagine being friends with, if she hadn't died in 1947.
Так, теперь нам надо понять. Вот хреново, что вот мы еле ходим, и поэтому это нас тормозит. Так, а что в этой комнате, которая запененная да нельзя?
Edie told me once that every Finch who ever lived is buried somewhere in the library.
А, это библиотека. Библиотека, которая просто да нельзя, это забитая, да? Вот как в таких потьмах я вообще что-то делать должен? Я же не вижу ни хрена, ровным счетом.
I wonder if that comic was right about there being a key inside the music box near the basement.
Так я ищу эту шкатулку как раз. Я только не понимаю, где она. Потому что я не вижу ни хрена, потому что здесь темно, как не знаю где. Так, может эту шкатулку крутили? Где это было? На каком этаже?
Maybe I should go check out that music box down by the basement.
Да завали... Вот она, да. Так. Давай, крути ее. А вот и ключик. Все, спускаемся в ваше любимое место, в подвал. Вы же любите шутки про подвал? Ну, типичный подвал, в принципе. Чё, ну, бильярдный стол неплохо. Столярная мастерская, типа.
Mom said the basement was off limits, unless I wanted another tetanus shot.
Уколов от столбняка, ну да. Ему нет.
I saw Edie sneak down to the basement once, carrying packages. I thought maybe she was hiding presents.
Молодец. Открывай.
It turned out she was hiding a lot more than that.
Блин, что так темно? Ну вот реально, не видно же.
I remember asking Mom once about where Walter had gone.
Куда делся Уолтер? Да
She said after
сожрали.
Barbara died, he got as far away as he could.
А, это бункер типа у
If
них.
there's a pattern in all these stories, I think it's that none of us has gotten very far.
Уолтер, 52-2005.
Goodbye, everyone. I can't believe I've been down here for
Ты
30
тут
years.
30 лет в подвале сидел.
On that first day, after the shaking started, I didn't think I'd survive a week.
Как же неудобно управлять.
But after a few days, I settled into a routine.
Это кошмар. Ты не понимаешь, куда тебе крутить. Вот за управление дикий минус.
Having a schedule, living for today.
А, у него компотик.
I always expected to be dead tomorrow. But if you wait long enough, you get used to anything.
Ежедневный день сурка у него.
Even a monster on the other side of the door starts to feel normal. Almost friendly.
30 лет в подвале посидеть. Это жесть. Няма-няма.
And then one day, everything just stopped. Whatever that thing was, it was gone. Maybe you got tired of waiting. Or maybe I just got tired of being afraid.
Няма-няма.
It's been a week now, the longest in 30 years.
А, все-таки решил...
I'm done waiting. I have to leave while I still can.
Ну. Ёп, у нее еще ниже подвал. Ни хрена там библиотека.
I know it's out there somewhere. Whatever killed Barbara.
Это выкопал все эти ходы, это же капец. Представляете, сколько это выкапывать надо было, это же жесть.
Maybe this is all a mistake.
О, кувалдочка.
But I need to stop living the same day, even if it kills me. Whatever's out there, I want you to know I'm ready for it. I'm going to appreciate
Мужик
all of
посидел
it,
30 лет в подвале и решил все-таки выйти, да?
I don't mind if I only have a year left. Or a month. Or a single week.
Вот это сбивает поезд.
I'd be happy.
Вот это будет эпично.
I can already imagine the sun on my face.
Капец, как все очевидно, да нельзя. Слушай, мужик дальше в подвале сидел.
Walter died when I was 6. I can't believe my mom never told me he was down here.
Ай, какой бред.
I'm sure my mom was trying to protect me.
А мы тоже вниз полезем, так фига и нет.
Maybe she was afraid I'd end up like Walter. But if she never told me about an uncle under the house, I can only imagine what else she was hiding.
Потом выяснится, что она тут тоже всех поубивала.
I don't want to make the same mistakes she made.
Давай,
Trying to bury
поехали.
something that's still alive.
Следом за нашим. Надеюсь, тебя поезд не собьет.
Now that there's only one of us left, or maybe two, I thought it was time I heard the stories for myself and found out what happened to everyone else.
Странная игра.
But now I'm worried the stories themselves might be the problem. Maybe we believed so much in a family curse, we made it real.
О, а мы начали быстрее
I don't
ходить.
know if I should even be writing this.
Нифига, мы так далеко от дома ушли.
Maybe it'd be better if all this just died with me. But I thought you should know about your family.
Давай, пусть нас
And the
сожрет
history
что-нибудь на
you're a part
берегу.
of.
Мы идем обратно домой, типа? До дома, до хаты? Ой, только мне показалось, что она
Though,
быстрее
to be
начала
honest, I
ходить.
feel
Ну,
as
не.
lost as you probably do right now. I think the people in these stories believed them, for what that's worth.
У вас всей семьи поехала кукуха? Типа, в чем маза-то?
And when you look at the house, that history of imagination and stubbornness and madness, any of it seems possible.
Тупичок. Так, а нам сюда? Это домик на дерево? На дереве?
I think we've been surrounded by death for so long, we've just gotten used to it. What kind of family finishes building a cemetery before starting the house?
А, мы идем на кладбище.
It's embarrassing for me to admit this, but the pet cemetery made me more uncomfortable than the human one.
Кладбище домашних
3
животных.
of the gerbils were mine, and 2 had been my fault. Sven built the house, but it was Edie who designed the cemetery. I'm sure Odin's monument had been Edie's idea. My mom was always trying to move on, but for Edie, the past never went away. She could see it poking out of the water at low tide.
Ой, прикольно.
Edie said she dreamed about the old house every night.
Это и домик, который разбился там в итоге, а волны. Так, и...
Edie's side was always easier for me to understand.
А, ну по
But
кругу
the older I
идем.
get, the more I can see where my mom was coming from. She lost 2 of her brothers, just like I did. I get why she tried so hard to protect us.
Ох, ох, ох.
There's so many things I wish I could ask my mom now. Part of me thinks this is what she wanted all along. For me to come back someday and find everything out for myself. But looking back on it now, if she told me there was going to be so much climbing, I never would have come when I was 22 weeks pregnant. I never met Grandpa Sam, but I think he and my mom had a lot in common. They were both pretty intense. Instead of hiding from death, Sam seemed to go out of his way to meet it.
А, он был охотником, да, типа? А, на войне типа служил. А, стал таксидермистом, понятненько. Что это такое?
Dawn, I promise, you'll never forget this weekend.
Yes, sir.
These memories are gonna last a lifetime.
Hmm? Am I gonna have to shoot anything?
It's a hunting trip, Dawn. Shooting is strongly encouraged. Perfect.
It's gonna rain the whole weekend, isn't it? I will never forget this weekend, Dad.
Okay, got it.
I'm gonna take some pictures, okay?
Just be careful. That camera's older than you are.
Не то.
You're right, Dad. It's starting to clear up. Still freezing, though. Aw.
Блин, да что мне надо снять-то здесь? Просто природа? Я не понимаю. Я же никого не вижу здесь. Село 3 избы знаешь? Нет. А должен?
Definitely should not have drunk all that coffee.
А,
Hold still on.
Hey!
That's a keeper.
ё-моё, мне туда камеру вообще не давали повернуть.
I'm just saying, I'm not always gonna be here, Dawn. You'll need to remember this stuff if you want to survive.
I'll be fine, Dad.
You know who else thought he was gonna be fine?
Some guy who died.
Dawn, I'm being serious.
No, Dad. You're always serious. Doesn't being out here make you want to chill out?
Well, to tell you the truth, I haven't been out here in 20 years. Dawn, don't you think you could find something more interesting to photograph?
Можешь фотографировать что-нибудь поинтереснее?
Last time I was with my brother Calvin. Man, that was a great trip. Your grandpa's Fen taught
Что
us
же
how
за
to
фокус
fish,
такой
how to
чудовищный?
build a fire. We found an old logging trail. There were deer everywhere.
Dad!
Good eyes, Dawn. Before you take the shot, let me get a picture of it.
Когда не стрелять, да и щелкнуть. Так, кого-то надо щелкнуть.
Dad, I...
Let me get behind you.
Я никогда не был на охоте.
Dawn, you don't have to do anything. But if you want to survive, you'll need to be strong.
Мне бы, наверное, жалко было.
Great shot, Dawn!
Ой, жалко животных, наверное, стрелять было бы.
I'm proud of you, Dawn. Always remember that, okay?
Dad, it's twitching. I think
That's
it's...
totally normal, Dawn. Just focus on the camera. Try not to think about...
Dad!
Кир, да, доигрался охотник. Название хорошее, ну, может быть. Да название сел, знаешь, сколько и рек, и всего на свете.
Of all these stories, that's the one I wish most that my mom had told me.
Это тут народу. А, эти-то это типа мы, да, вон там наверху сам.
Sam spent his life shooting photos, but Mom said he got nervous being in front of the camera. I guess we're all afraid of something.
Оп, идем дальше. Ну, на самом деле, пока мне эта игра нравится меньше, чем предыдущая. Я не очень люблю такие вот повествования. А фамилия забей ворота. Ну да, много чего есть такого смешного. Смешных названий очень много. Чей-то диагноз?
Dear Kay, do you remember the way Gregory used to laugh when he thought he was alone? Like something funny was happening, but only he could see it.
Gregory, it's time to... Hold on, sweetie. Hello? Sam, I told you I don't want to talk right now. Sorry about that, Gregory.
I know you did everything you could. Maybe if I hadn't called that night.
Damn it. Hold on, I don't...
Good luck, Kay. Love,
Жесть
Sam.
какая-то. Запишем. Блин, я, честно говоря, думал, что игра будет более какая-то позитивная. О, прикольно. Это же типа для скалолазов. Прикольная стенка.
At the time, it was as far away as she could get.
Блин, прикольно.
I can't imagine what it was like for her to lose 2 sons after she'd already lost 2 brothers. She spent a summer building houses in Calcutta, where she met my dad, Sanjay.
Да кто там неугомонный-то такой? Ой, ты чё неугомонный такой? Пожарный шест.
I can't imagine my mom ever writing poetry, and yet...
A poem for Gus, who always said the wedding was a bad idea. Our father never hit us kids, at least not very hard, before the day my brother said with teenage disregard that he'd be dead before he'd see a wedding in our yard.
Нормальная такая катушка воздушного змея вообще.
My father made him come, of course, but Gus stood far apart, just flew his kite and bottled up the storm inside his heart. I tried to talk him out of it, but though he'd never met her, we don't need a stepmom, were the words that
I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride.
Я люблю воздушную змею запускать. Прикольно. Так, я не помню, а дальше что?
When the time for photos came, Dad ordered him to come here. But Gus declined, and as a sign held up his middle finger.
Вот так вот. Он взял, просто их послал.
Wind picked up, and panicked geese appeared and quickly went. But all the humans did that day was go inside the tent. The rain came down in buckets then, but no one seemed afraid that nature might destroy the tent our dad had crudely made.
чутка лишнего взяли.
The thunder sounded much too close and full of angry power. But all my father said to this
Молния
was to
ударила
make
в
the
змея и
music
убила
louder.
его. Ну, наверное, это типа самое логичное, что здесь можно было придумать.
I wish that I could truly say I thought about you on that day. Out there on the beach alone, just you, the wind, the sea, and foam. But I didn't. Until we found you.
She never talked about him, but Mom told me once if I was a boy, they were going to name me Gus.
Gus. Да. Как-то не весело. Так, ну, видимо, нам в обратку, да, надо выбираться. Очень прикольная такая задумка с этой со стеной, с зацепками для скалолазания. Какой же это, блин, тут маленький дом. Охренеть лазить. Ты, блин, не понимаешь, куда тебе на самом деле надо. И куда? В обратку? Че, реально в обратку надо идти? Ну, там вроде проходов нигде не было. Такое ощущение, что не в обратку, мы где-то что-то не увидели. Нам надо где-то еще там пройтись. Обратно нам не дает уйти. Там же вроде ничего не было. Или какое-нибудь окно где-нибудь. Ладно. Мы не гордые. Давайте смотреть. Полезли обратно. Я вот ничего не видел. Тут вот не было ничего. Да куда ты? Лезешь вперед, нажимаешь, он почему-то обратно лезет. Странная какая-то история. Теоретически через какое-нибудь окно в крышу можно было вылезти куда-то. Сохранение. Зачем и почему здесь сохранение? Тут же, блин, все закрыто. Вот и полазили. А, ну, как я и говорил, окно.
My mom moved to India a week after graduation and got a job teaching English. Louis was born a year later.
Ё-моё, чё так низко-то?
When my dad died, I don't think Mom knew where else to go. I'm sure Edie was happy to have her back. And to see kids in the house again.
Мини-садик.
The house had to get a little bigger, but Edie was used to that.
Немного ошибок. Так, капец, 20 этажей вниз и 20 этажей вверх, да? Немножко ошибок, так, ну малость.
And for a while, things were good. Almost normal. But it didn't last. The beginning of the end was Milton's 10th birthday, when Edie gave him a castle. After Milton disappeared, the only thing he left behind was a room full of paintings. Edith Finch in The Magic Paintbrush.
Волшебные кисточки. Ну. Вот она, мультипликация. Задолбаешься на самом деле вот это все рисовать.
I was 4 when Milton disappeared.
Так, ну видимо нам вниз, да, теперь обратно.
Mom spent months searching for my brother. Then she sealed the doors. Whatever Milton had found in the house, Mom didn't want it getting out.
Такой неплохой вид из окна. А, зашибись, я не могу просто перелезть, ты серьезно?
Mom definitely blamed Edie, but I think Lewis blamed himself.
А не смущает, что лодка как бы из дома торчит? Это вообще нормально?
After he graduated, he just spent more and more time in his room. Until Mom got him a job at the cannery. Everyone always told me to stay out of Lewis's room.
Ого-го.
Except Lewis.
А Льюис-то там не промах, кальянчик, запрещенные вещества всякие.
Lewis's room smelled very, very familiar. That part of him lived on.
О, это типа PlayStation какой-нибудь?
Lewis and I spent a lot of time playing games together, but he was surprisingly bad at them. He died a lot.
Два моника, да вы гляньте, это оборудование лучше, чем у меня сейчас.
Dear Mrs. Finch, as Lewis's psychiatrist, I can understand your desire for an explanation. As I see it, the trouble began in January, shortly after we convinced your son to seek treatment for substance abuse.
Понятно, зависимость.
Newly sober, I believe Lewis first noticed the monotony of his daily life. He kept
Охрененная
working at the
работа.
cannery, but he withdrew part of himself. In our sessions, I saw the same behavior. His mind began to wander. I asked him to describe it. He said he started small, imagining a labyrinth. He'd feel his way about. Then something moved. Bats and toads. And things that have not names. He knew it was all in his head. He took it very seriously. I had hoped he'd find himself. But he found something more.
Как он две игры в одной.
Daydreaming at the cannery. I spoke with his boss. But he said Lewis had become a model employee. Methodical, tireless, focused. Like a whole new Lewis. So I let him go on. I even encouraged him. It seemed very promising at first. He told me he'd made a new friend. On the edge of a city he named Lewis Topia. He built the city up slowly, brick by brick. Then he made musicians.
В общем, игра про то, как у всех ехал чердак, походу.
And songs for them to play. He talked about starting a band. And he was always humming something. Every day his imagination grew stronger.
Реально будет игра из разряда каких-то странных.
He no longer spoke at the cannery. But his chopping was as reliable as ever. Then one day it struck him that all the cheering crowds, even the stones under his feet, were all in his imagination. So he could do whatever he wished. He held an election for mayor. And he won. They begged him to stay, but his mind was already wandering. It became a game for him. He'd conquer a city, then immediately push on. New Louisville.
Это я в Скулбонсе плыву.
St. Louis. He started drifting away from our reality.
В общем, кто-то слишком много запрещенки употреблял.
Minneapolis. Until one day he forgot to go home from the cannery.
Он забыл уйти с завода домой. Бывает.
Part of Lewis kept sailing on. Lewisburg, he heard rumors of a handsome queen. The queen was on her own quest for radiant rainbows. He followed the sound of her silver harp. His chase led him to a golden palace east of the sun and west of the moon. Even then, his logic remained sound.
Господи, а можно без рыбы уже этой?
He knew the world was all in his imagination.
Ну куда у меня эта рыба, завал? Шеф, я не справляюсь.
But he was so proud of having created it. In his own eyes, he'd become something greater than a king.
Такое ощущение, что в VR какой-то играем с этой рыбой.
For someone who'd never known success in the real world, I think it was overwhelming. And then it struck him.
Симулятор отрубания рыбных голов у нас.
But the one climbing the steps of a golden palace.
Да куда ты там побежала?
My imagination is as real as my body, he told me. It was hard to
Богатое воображение у чего было. О, суровые будни. Все, ушли со смены. Нафига рыбу?
Began to forget the world we know.
Да не мудрено. Запахан, наверное, на рыбном заводе вообще жесткий.
I think it pained him to remember Lewis, the cannery worker.
Рыбный заводик жестко.
He began to despise the man with a royal contempt. I still thought I could save him. Even after he said he was being crowned king over all the lands of wonder. The palace would be packed with his companions. Including the wise Calico, insisted on advising him. His queen waited, holding his crown. There was only one thing left to do.
Гильотинка. Ой, блин. Секир башка.
And the rest I think you know. Mrs. Finch, your son was a kind man who will be missed by all of us who knew him.
Жесть-то какая. Ой, блин. Тебя коронуют, только голову сунь в эту, в гильотинку.
My brother was really cool. I wish you could have met him.
А нормальные вообще в семье были, нет? Или реально все с этим... Все какие-то веселые ребята. Да...
On the way back from Lewis's funeral, my mom told me to start packing. She waited until the day before we left to tell Edie. I'm not sure if she wanted to make it easier or harder. I wish we'd stayed. But I understand why we left. My mom ended up leaving everything behind. What happened that night had been coming for a long time. Maybe it should have come sooner.
Ну и капец домик, конечно,
But it had to end one way or another. All that's left now is to tell you about that last night.
А мы же не всех открыли вроде. Это ее типа укромное место тут. Капец отсюда спускаться. Ой, мы же не всех там открыли.
That whole last day, Edie just watched us pack and didn't say a word. Until supper, when she raised her glass and said,
"To our final night together, and all our final nights apart."
Grandma, you know what I said about alcohol. Some of your medications are very
Edith,
specific.
I left a present for you in the hallway. Why don't you go open it? The grown-ups have to argue now.
I'm sorry, you're right. We're all leaving tomorrow. Let's just enjoy our last...
I'm not leaving.
Edith, you're excused.
Edith, пойди-ка погуляй. Эти будут ругаться здесь.
The power had been shut off that morning, but Edie always had plenty of candles. When my mom sealed the library, I don't think she knew about the other entrance, or that Edie had a key to it.
Да, но вроде в книжке там не всех открыли.
Isn't going to end when you leave the house. Edith has a right to know these stories.
My children are dead because of your stories. I think it's best if Edith and I leave tonight.
Даже истории нам не рассказали.
We'll have the nursing home send a van for you in the morning. Okay?
Dear Edith, there's so many stories I wish I could tell you, but there's only time for one. This is about what happened on the night you were born. That night, the tide went way, way out.
И она дошла до того дома.
It was the first and last time I ever saw the old house aground. There'd been an earthquake out in the middle of the ocean. They called it the lowest tide in 1,000 years. God, it smelled awful. You know, I've seen that house every day of my life.
Ну так-то жесткий отлив, там капец можно было погулять.
I'd go back to it. When the fog rolled in, I lost my way. I got turned around.
Туман бывает вообще жесткий, реально ни хрена в нем не видно. Дальше вот целого нос не видишь. Куда идешь, зачем
For a
идешь.
while, I wondered. I started seeing things. Things I'd forgotten had ever existed. But when I saw them, they felt like old friends. That night, a lot of things came back to me. Or maybe I came back to them. Things I can't explain, but that I need you to try and...
Edith, what are you doing in here?
It's mine.
Edith!
Mom, you're gonna rip it! Let go! I kicked and screamed, but Mom dragged me to the car.
Не дорассказали нам историю.
I never saw Great-Grandma Edie again. The next morning, the van came to pick her up, but she was already gone. After that, we moved around a lot. We both tried to make the best of it. A few years went by. My mom didn't like to talk about it, but she started getting sick a lot. The rest happened pretty quickly. She got better for a while, and then she didn't. And then I was alone. The last Finch left alive. Until I found out about you. I'm still not sure what to tell you about all this. If we lived forever, maybe we'd have time to understand things. But as it is, I think the best we can do is try to open our eyes. And appreciate how strange and brief all of this is. This journal was supposed to be for you. But now I hope you'll never see it. I just want to meet you and tell you all these stories myself. But I guess if you're reading this now, things didn't work out that way. This is where your story begins. I'm sorry I won't be there to see it. It's a lot to ask, but I don't want you to be sad that I'm gone. I want you to be amazed that any of us ever had a chance to be here at all. Good luck.
Да, что-то я оригами тоже подзабросил. Кубиком тоже было некогда времени, за времени не было заниматься, не смотреть ничего, работа душила. Да, странная игра. Гостей проводили, но мы здесь игру закончили. Ну, это что-то странное. Типа просто повествовательная история о тех или иных родственников, о том, что с ними случилось, о воспоминаниях. Странная игра, конечно. Какие детские фотографии смешные. Как-то капец народу тут делал игру-то. Да, это конец. Что-то Азал там с 3 часами погорячился, по-моему. А, мы реально всех открыли? Теперь есть возможность повторить историю, чтобы начать с самого начала. Выберите Edith. Окей. Да, вот такая вот получилась история просто. Ну ладно. Как говорится, спасибо этой игре, пойдем искать следующую.